Hey everyone, this is Connor with AmateurHourMTG. I'm going to be bringing you another deck tech video on what recently has become probably one of my favorite decks. Not quite as good as Yuriko, but it's up there. It is Dimir. We're going to be going over today Ramses, Assassin Lord, blue-black, 2 colorless to cast, Death Touch. Other assassins you control get +1/+1, and whenever a player loses the game, if they were attacked this turn by an assassin you controlled, you win the game. Pretty interesting ability there. Really, no other creature in Magic has an ability like that. It's kind of unique. So I'm going to be showing you my list and some kind of interesting cards on how we can abuse this ability, squeeze out some early wins, or some unexpected wins even. And yeah, so let's jump right into it. Put Ramses right over here. I'm going to start off with the creatures. So first we're going to get into K9 Mark 1. He's 1 blue to cast. He has, as long as K9 Mark 1 is untapped, other legendary creatures you control have Ward 1. He's got 1 blue, 1 colorless, tap. Target legendary creature can't be blocked this turn. He's also Doctor's Companion. He's from the new Doctor Who set. But he's going to help give Ramses a little bit of protection with the ward, and he's going to give him unblockable if we need to squeeze him in there and get an attack. We got Loyal Drake, 2 generic, 1 blue, flying. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, draw a card. Okay. A little bit of card draw there. Ezor, Ward Wing Familiar, 1 blue, 1 generic. He has flying. Spells your opponent's cast that target 1 or more commanders you control cost 3 more to cast. So he's going to, again, help Ramses get a little protection. We want to make sure we're keeping Ramses on the board. A Shadow Mage Infiltrator, 1 black, 1 blue, 1 colorless. He has Fear. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. So there's a lot of cards in this deck that I'm using to get card advantage by drawing cards if I'm dealing combat damage or what have you, just to help get through the deck really quick. Because there's a certain card that we want to get to, and I'll get into that here a little bit later. Spellskite, 2 generic. You can pay 1 blue or 1 Phyrexian, which is 2 life. Change a target of target spell or ability to Spellskite. So again, it's going to help protect Ramses or maybe some other pieces on the board that we have, and redirect him to Spellskite. That way we can keep him out on the field. Dauthi Voidwalker. I think anybody familiar with cEDH or even EDH should know what this card does, but I'll go over it. 2 black. Shadow. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a void counter on it. And then we can tap, sacrifice Dauthi Voidwalker, choose an exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. This is going to shut down those graveyard decks. This is going to also put some cards off to the side as things are getting played that you may want to use later, like a counter spell of some sort, or bounce something to an opponent's hand that we can get in with an assassin. Opposition Agent, 2 generic, 2 black, flash. You control your opponents while they're searching their libraries. While an opponent is searching their library, they exile each card they find. You may play those cards as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though it was mana of any color to cast them. Pretty self-explanatory here. One kind of unique ability that Opposition Agent has that maybe some of you know, maybe some of you don't. But if an opponent is searching their library and you have this out, you're searching for them, but you're controlling them. And so what that means is you also get a look at that player's hand. So keep in mind, somebody, you flash this in against a tutor or a fetch land of some sort, be sure to check the player's hand. Just get that additional information for you. Notion Thief, 1 blue, 1 black, 2 generic. Flash. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw each of their draw steps, instead that player skips that draw and you draw a card. So essentially, what you're going to be able to do is flash this in. So maybe somebody plays a Windfall or a Wheel of Fortune or any of those big draw spells, or maybe they're just constantly drawing spells or cards on their turn. you can flash this in and essentially take those draws from them, and you get those draws. For instance, if you have 4 players, somebody plays a Wheel of Fortune, and you flash out a Notion Thief, you're going to draw your 7 off the Wheel of Fortune, but then you're going to draw 7 from each of the other opponents, which is going to be an additional 21 cards on top of your 7. So this guy can come in clutch pretty quickly. Wingcrafter, 1 blue, soulbound. So you may pair this creature with another unpaired creature when either enters the battlefield. They remain paired as long as you control both of them. So Wingcrafter is going to come in and essentially give Ramses flying, just make it a little bit easier to get in. Because when they're soulbound, they each get flying. Gilded Drake. 1 blue, 1 generic, flying. When Gilded Drake comes into play, exchange control of Gilded Drake for target creature one of your opponent's controls, or sacrifice Gilded Drake. Hey, maybe somebody's got a creature you really want. Give them a 3/3 flyer and take their creature. Pretty straightforward. Dark Confidant, 1 black, 1 generic. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card in your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. For the most part, this deck has a pretty low overall mana cost, so you're not going to be really losing a lot of health with this guy, but he's just going to get you a ton of cards. Changeling Outcast, 1 black, he's a changeling, which means he's an assassin. Can't be blocked and he can't block, so maybe we need to sneak in and get an assassin in, again, to get that Ramses trigger. Thassa's Oracle. Everyone, I think, knows what this card does, but this is just a win con with another instant that we have in the deck, Demonic Consultation. Essentially, when Thassa's Oracle enters, you're going to look at the top X of your card, where X is your devotion of blue. Put one of them on top of your library and the rest at the bottom of your library in random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards you have in your library, you win the game. So if you have no cards in your library and you play Thassa's Oracle, she's going to see that you have no cards and you're just going to win. So just a quick little easy win con. Ah, look who it is. Yuriko. 1 black, 1 blue, 1 generic. As Commander Ninjutsu. So we can Ninjutsu her in, return an unblocked attacker to our hand, swap Yuriko in. Whenever a ninja you control deals damage to a player, reveal the top card of your library. Put that card in your hand. Each opponent loses life to that card's converted mana cost. So she's pretty good just for the fact that she's going to get you, again, card advantage, and you're constantly going to be dealing damage if you're flipping cards with her. This is going to help you get an opponent low enough, that way you can swing in with Ramses or another assassin with Ramses on the field and take that player out and win the game. Mari the Killing Quill. Black, 1 generic. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, exile it with a hit counter on it. Assassins, mercenaries, and rogues you control have death touch, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a hit counter from a card that player owns in exile. If you do, draw a card and create 2 treasure tokens. Yeah, she can be very, very good. If there's creatures that are constantly dying or getting sacked, anything of that sort, she's just going to help you get those hit counters on those cards, and then you're going to be able to deal damage and get draw cards and get more treasure tokens, which is pretty good. Snapcaster Mage. 1 blue, 1 generic. Flash. When Snapcaster Mage enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery in your graveyard gains flashback till end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. This guy's just going to help us play our instant and sorceries in our graveyard if we use them, or maybe something gets countered, or maybe we have this guy in our hand and we need to get a counter spell. Massacre Girl. 2 black, 3 generic. Menace. When Massacre Girl enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn. Whenever a creature this turn dies, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets -1/-1 till end of turn. More times than not, she's just going to board wipe the field. If there's a 1/1 when she comes in, she's going to kill the 1/1. Okay? Everything's getting -1/1, -1/1. when that creature dies, everything's going to get -2, -2. If something else dies, everything's going to get -3, -3. And so on and so forth until, essentially until a creature doesn't die. And then she's going to be on the field with Menace, and yeah, hopefully you can swing in next turn for the win. Agent of Fates. This is a card that I recently kind of came across, and I think it fits in the deck pretty well. One, it's an assassin, which is neat. It's 2 black, 1 colorless, Death Touch, but it has this heroic ability. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Ancient of the Fates, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Yeah, pretty good. Some of you may know one of my favorite cards in Magic, Grave Pact. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. It kind of does the same thing, but whenever I target this guy with a spell, everyone's going to sacrifice a creature. All my opponents. I have quite a few spells in the deck that are going to be targeting my creatures. I'll get into those a little bit later, but just keep this guy in mind when we're looking at the rest of the cards. In Sig, River Cutthroat. 2 hybrid mana, blue or black. Merfolk Rogue. At the end of turn, if an opponent lost 3 or more life this turn, you may draw a card. This doesn't just trigger on your turn. This is each turn. So as we're going around the board, if an opponent lost 3 life on somebody else's turn, on their end step, you're going to draw. This guy is going to draw you a lot of cards if there's a lot of damage being done throughout the game. So there's all the creatures, 19 creatures. I'm going to jump into the enchantments, go over those here with you real quick. And you'll kind of see what I mean, some of these spells here that target creatures. We'll start off with Curious Obsession, 1 blue, enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 and has, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't attack with a creature this turn, sacrifice Curious Obsession. Yeah, this is kind of a curiosity effect. We've got quite a few of those in the deck, including Curiosity, so we'll get to those. But like I said, we're really trying to stack the card draw to get through our deck, get to the cards we need to get to, load up on counter spells. That way when we go for the win, we're able to protect the win. Combat Research. Enchant creature. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. As long as enchanted creature is legendary, it gets +1/+1 and has ward. So give a legendary some protection, +1/+1, and like I said, another curiosity effect. Sleeper's Robe. I do like this card. I think it looks pretty neat. I do have it in foil. It's kind of hard to see on camera. But 1 black, 1 blue. Enchanted creature can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures, so it has fear. Whenever enchanted creature deals combat damage to opponent, you may draw a card. Oh, look what it is. Curiosity. Enchanted creature. Whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. Now, Curiosity is damage. It doesn't necessarily have to be combat damage. It's just damage. But we don't really have anything that synergizes with the deck. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions, put them down in the comments. Let me know. Mystic Remora, 1 blue, cumulative upkeep of 1 generic. Whenever opponent casts a non-creature spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays for generic. Just more card draw. Help us out in the beginning of the games if we get that in our starting hand. Heuristic Study, 1 blue, 2 generic. Whenever opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless that player plays 1. So more card draw. Equitous Form. Enchant creature can't be blocked. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, scry 1. So again, not exactly a draw effect, but it's going to help us get through our deck. Get the cards off the top that we don't necessarily need at the moment. Put them on the bottom. Get to something else. Alright, so now let's move into the artifacts. I have 13 artifacts in the deck. First one here is going to be Felwar Stone. 2 generic, tap, and 1 mana of any color of a land that opponent controls could produce. Good old Soul Ring. Lotus Petal. I'll kind of go through these pretty quickly. I think most of us, probably know what these cards do, so. Talisman of Dominance. Arcane Signet. Mox Diamond. Mana Crypt, Mox Amber, good old Lightning Greaves, Conqueror's Veil. I'll go over this card really quick. It's 2 generic. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control. So essentially, with our deck, we only have 2 colors, so the most it's going to give is +2/+2. But the ability that we really care about is as long as Conqueror's Veil is attached to a creature, your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. So this is going to help you. If you can get this attached to a creature and nobody interacts, you are free to do what you want for the rest of your turn. If you want to cast spells, if you want to play creatures, whatever you need to do, get this attached to a creature and you're set to go for the rest of your turn. Jeweled Lotus, a Mana Vault, and Chrome Mox. Alright, next, let's go into the sorceries. And we'll do the instants and the lands after that. For sorcery, we got Feed the Swarm, 1 black, 1 generic. Destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. You lose life equal to that permanent's mana value. Guys, this is a very important card. Black doesn't have a whole lot of destroy enchantments. In fact, there's 2 cards in the entire game that destroy enchantments in black. Obviously, there's some things you can do with blue, such as counter the spell, bounce it, things like that. But this can be a game changer. Don't get stuck with a back to the basics on the field, and all you have is non-basic lands. So get this card and get the enchantments out of there. Good old Demonic Tutor, 1 black, 1 generic. Search your library for a card, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Praetor's Grasp, 2 black, 1 generic. Search target opponent's library for a card, exile it face down, then that player shuffles his or her library. You may look at it and play that card as long as it remains exiled. You can use this on, there's several different things. You can go take somebody's win con out of their deck. You can go get a Thassa's Oracle if you have Demonic Consultation, or vice versa. You can go get a tutor out of somebody's deck and use it on your own deck. This card has a lot of options depending on what decks you're playing against. So yeah, really good card. Scheming Symmetry, 1 black, choose 2 target players. Each of them searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top. Yeah, this can be helpful early game. Not, I wouldn't say late game unless you have opposition agent out or something of the sorts. But if you can Scheming Symmetry, get your win con, get your card, and I'll show you that a little bit later, to win the game, then yeah, this can help you get there. Cataxian Probe, 1 blue or Phyrexian mana, whichever one. Look at target player's hand, draw a card, just a nice little cantrip. Slip Through Space, 1 blue, has Devoid, so this card is colorless. Target creature can't be blocked this turn, and draw a card. So it's a nice little cantrip, can't be stopped by, Red Elemental Blast or Pyroblast or any of those kind of type of effects that are going to target blue spells. And like I said, it's a cantrip. It's going to replace itself and give Ramses or another assassin you have unblockable. Grim Tutor, 2 black, 1 generic. Search your library for a card, put it in your hand, lose 3 life. And there's the sorceries. Next, let's jump into the fat stack of instants. There is a lot of instants in this deck, 28 instances. So we'll run through them here real quick. Vampiric Tutor, search your library for a card, then shuffle your library, put that card on top of it, you lose 2 life. Instant Speed. There's Demonic Consultation, our win con with Thassa's Oracle. Here is Opt. This is a Japanese card, but it's Opt, which is 1 blue. Scry 1, then draw. So you can scry, look at the top. Do I want this card? Yep, keep it there, draw it. Do I not want this card? Let's put it at the bottom and draw something else. Japanese good old counter spell. Force of Negation. it's not your turn, exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay spell's mana cost. More times than not, that's what we're doing, is we're exiling a card from our hand to play this for free. Counter target non-creature spell. If that spell is countered this way, it gets exiled. So you could stop somebody's, completely remove it out of the game for them. That way they have no way to get it back. Fatal Push, 1 black. You know, I've been told to take this card out and replace it. I do like it. It's 1 black. It has Revolt. So, in its normal ability, destroy target creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less. There's a lot of creatures you're going to hit with that. And then it has Revolt. Destroy that creature if it has a converted mana cost 4 or less. Instead, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn. Yeah, this is kind of cool. If you use it in tandem with like a fetch land, okay, you're going to have a permanent leave the field, and then you're going to be able to cast this and destroy mana cost 4 or greater, or 4 or less. If you use a treasure token, same thing. If you had a creature die, same thing. If you had any card or permanent you have leave the field this turn, this is going to hit mana cost 4 or less rather than 2 or less. So, I like it. Imp's Mischief, kind of a funny card that most people are not prepared for, not expecting out of black. 1 black, 1 generic. Change the target of target spell with a single target. You lose life equal to that spell's converted mana cost. So any spell that is targeting something, you're going to be able to cast this in response, change the target to something else. So maybe somebody casts a kill spell on Ramses. Congratulations, you played yourself. You're going to be able to change the target and target something else. Or Peer into the Abyss. You can have Peer in the Abyss, instead of it targeting the player that cast it, you can have it target yourself. You're going to lose a good chunk of life, but you're going to draw half your library. And more times than not, you can win the game at that point. So a lot of utility with that card. Flusterstorm, 1 blue, counter target instant or sorcery, unless its controller pays 1, has Storm. So if 5 spells were cast this turn and you cast Flusterstorm, there's going to be 5 instances of Flusterstorm on the stack. Essentially, the controller needs to pay 5 or it's countered. Good old Dark Ritual. Add 3 black mana for 1 black. Impulse, 1 blue, 1 generic. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 of them in your hand, rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This is kind of a better, a little bit easy way to get the cards we need off the top, get them into our hand, put any garbage we don't need on the bottom. Good old Cyclonic Rift, 1 blue, 1 generic. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Or you got the Overload, 1 blue, 6 generic. Replace target with each. So return each non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Fierce Guardianship. You control your commander. You may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. Counter target non-creature. Mission Briefing. I do like this card. It's 2 blue. It's got Surveil 2. Then choose an instant or sorcery in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. If that card will be put in your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So this is going to help us play instant and sorceries out of the graveyard at instant speed. Or excuse me, instances at instant speed, sorceries at sorcery speed. It has Surveil 2, which, if you don't know, you're going to look at the top 2 cards of your library and then decide whether you want to, I can't remember if it's put them on the bottom or put them on top, but then you get to decide if you want them in the graveyard. And then you can cast a spell from your graveyard, instant or sorcery. So, counter spells, Demonic Consultation, things like that. Our WinCon card, which we're getting to here shortly. So I do like that card. Pact of Negation, cost 0, counter target spell. Pretty straightforward. The only caveat is, beginning of your upkeep, you need to play 3 generic and 2 blue. Be very careful casting this card if you are on the fringe of being able to pay for it and somebody removes an artifact or somebody removes one of your lands. On your upkeep, you're just going to die. So just keep that in mind. And here we are. This is one of the main win cons in the deck. Hatred, 2 black, 3 generic. Pay X life. Target creature gets plus X plus 0 to end a turn. Now, the reason why this is good, we'll get our commander in here. Whenever an opponent loses the game, if they were attacked this turn by an assassin you controlled, you win the game. So what we're going to be able to do with Ramses and Hatred is, if we attack with Ramses and he doesn't get blocked or can't be blocked or what have you, and we play Hatred, we have to pay 17 life to give Ramses plus 17 plus 0. He's now at 21-4. And he's going to deal 21 commander, and that player's going to lose the game. Well, guess what? That player lost the game, and they were attacked by an assassin you control. So you just win. So, yeah, pretty good. That's why we have cards to make him unblockable, give him flying, you know, all that stuff. And we have the card draw to try to get to this card as quickly as we can. And then we have things like the mission briefing and flashback mage. Those spells able to be able to play this out of the graveyard again at instant speed if we need to. So, Mystical Tutor, search your library for an instant, interrupt, mana source, or sorcery card. So, instant or sorcery, put it on the top of your library. You do have to reveal it, but you put it on top. This is, again, going to help us get Hatred. If we're going for Hatred more times than not, we want to cast this at just before it's our turn. So the end step, just before our turn, go get Hatred, put it on top, go to our turn, and hopefully win. Mana Drain 2 blue. Counter target spell. Beginning of your next main phase, add an amount of generic equal to that spell's converted mana cost. Arcane Denial. Counter target spell. Its controller may draw up to 2 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep, and you're going to draw a card at the beginning of next turn's upkeep. Deadly Rollick. If you control your commander, you can cast this without paying its cost. Exile target creature. March of the Swirling Mist. This card's kind of unique. This is kind of a pseudo unblockable type ability. You're gonna pay 1 blue and X to phase out X target creatures. Now, as an additional cost to cast a spell, you can exile any number of blue cards from your hand. The spell will cost 2 less to cast for each card exiled. So if you pay the blue and you exile 1 blue card out of your hand, you're going to be able to phase out 2 creatures. If you exile 2 blue cards, you're going to be able to phase out 4. If you exile 3, you're going to be able to phase out 6. So every card you exile is equal essentially to 2 creatures. Now you can use this in a couple ways. If you know you have the win on your next turn and you just need to keep Ramses on the board, you can phase Ramses out if he gets targeted. Or if you need to get Ramses in and you need to kill somebody, you can phase out enemies, creatures. That way Ramses attacks or another assassin, you kill them, and win the game that way. So I do like this card. Swan Song, 1 blue. Counter target enchantment, instant, or sorcery spell. Its controller puts a 2/2 bird with flying onto the battlefield. Pretty much a staple there. Counter Squall, 1 black, 1 blue. Counter target non-creature spell. Its controller loses 2 life. There's some counter spells that are probably a little bit better than this. I just enjoy it. It's foil. It looks cool. But it does have the lose 2 life ability, which some of you may think, well, it's only 2 life. I have killed somebody with this before. They were playing right on the edge. They cast a spell. I countered it. They died. So just kind of an interesting way to kill somebody. Howl from Beyond. 1 black and X. Target creature gets X till end of turn. This is, if we've got a player that's at really low life and we just don't quite have the damage on Ramses to kill him, you can pump mana into this at instant speed and hopefully get that player out to get the win. Not quite as good as Hatred, but, it's as close as we can get. Spell Pierce, 1 blue, counter target non-creature spell, unless the controller pays 2 generic. Dismember, 2 Phyrexian black, 1 generic, so 4 life, 1 generic, more times than not. Target creature gets -5 to end of turn. If you don't know, cards like these get around indestructible. -5, -5s, or negative counters, or giving a creature negative power, negative toughness can get around indestructible, which is why this card is good. Unsummon. 1 blue, return target creature to its owner's hand. Again, maybe our commander tax is extremely high and we just cannot afford to have him die. We can bounce him to our hand. Or if maybe somebody left a blocker up, they thought, well, Connor's got Ramses, they only got 1 blocker, I'm just going to keep my 1 creature back and block. Well, this is going to be able to get rid of that creature, and hopefully you can get in for the win. You can also target Agent of the Fates and have everyone sack a creature for 1 blue if you have him on the field. So kind of unique. Good old Force of Will. Pay 1 life, remove a blue card from your hand out of the game instead of paying Force of Will's casting costs. Counter target spell. Pretty straightforward. And for our spells, last but not least, Shadow Rift. 1 blue. Target creature gains Shadow turn to turn. Can only be blocked with creatures with Shadow. More times than not, there's not going to be any other creature on the field with Shadow besides maybe another Dauthi Voidwalker. And it's also a cantrip. It's going to replace itself. You're going to draw a card. So, more times than not, you're going to give the creature unblockable, and you're going to draw a card for 1 blue. And again, targeting Agent of the Fates, everyone's going to sack a creature. So yeah, there are the spells. I will briefly go over the lands. We have 25 lands, which is very, very low. But we also have a low CMC overall with the deck, and we have a lot of artifacts. So first we got Polluted Delta, just your generic fetch land. Fetid Pools enters the battlefield tapped. It also has cycling, so if you get this card later down the road, later in the game, and you don't want it, pay the cycling and get the card out of here. Tainted Isle. Temple of Deceit. Comes in tap, but it's going to let us scry. Another fetch land, Marsh Flats. Otwara, the Soaring City. 1 blue, 3 generic. Discard Otwara, Soaring City, return target creature, artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. This ability costs 1 generic less to activate for each legendary creature. So, if you got just Ramses out, this is going to cost 2 generic, 1 blue. This is a channel. It is a channel ability, which means they need some sort of stifle effect to stop this. Counterspell is not going to cut it, and this hits a lot of different cards. Hits your enchantments, hits your creatures, hits your planeswalkers, hits all those things. This card's very hard to stop. It's almost guaranteed to bounce whatever you're targeting to their hand. Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. We're going to turn all the lands into swamps as well. Shipwreck Marsh. Comes in tapped unless we control 2 or more other lands. Verdant Catacombs, just another fetch land. Shizo Death Storehouse. This is kind of cool. It gives target legendary creature fear till end of turn for 1 black. Yeah, so we're going to give Ramses fear or another assassin fear, and hopefully swing in for the kill. Drowned Catacomb comes in tapped unless you control an island or a swamp. Watery Grave, good old Shockland. Ebon Stronghold. I've been considering swapping this out. It does come in tapped, but you can tap it for 2 black and sacrifice it. So this is going to help you in those really, really good hands. If you have Hatred early in the game, this is going to pay for the 2 black, and then you just need to come up with 3 generic to play the Hatred. That's kind of my thought process. Let me know what you guys think. Command Tower. Ancient Tomb. Tap for 2 generic. Deals 2 damage to you. Another fetch land, Scalding Tarn. Murkwater Pathway. So we can play this for either for the black or on the flip side for the blue. Another fetch land, Misty Rainforest. And Tekanuma Abandoned Mire. Has the same ability channel as Otwara. Discard Tekanuma Abandoned Mire, mill 3 cards, then return a creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. So maybe our Snapcaster Mage got put back in the graveyard and we need to get that back. Maybe there's I don't know, any of our other creatures for some reason we need to get back. Maybe you're in a really bad spot and you need to get your Dark Confidant back for some reason. Whatever. That ability is there. More times than not, you're probably just going to play it for the land, but having that channel ability available for you can help out. So, and last but not least, three islands, 3 swamps. And that's all the lands in the deck. So yeah, that is the entire deck. Let me know what you guys think. I've been playing this deck a lot. I do enjoy it. I think Ramses is a pretty unique commander with that ability. And, you know, is it telegraphed? Yeah, people are going to be expecting you to do some weird stuff. But more times than not, you're probably going to be able to sneak in, get a win or two with him. And it just feels good. You know, you don't necessarily have to do the Thassa's Oracle demonic consultations that you see a lot of Dimir decks do. This gives you an opportunity to have half of a win con in the command zone with hatred, or maybe opponents at 4 life, you just swing and kill him. And then he just wins the game that way. So, pretty unique guy. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any cards you'd like to see, or cards that you think would be good in the deck, post them in the comments. I'd love to read over them and see kind of what your guys' thoughts are. And yeah, hopefully you like the deck tech, and have a great rest of the day. Peace out.